بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما نافعا والحقنا بعبادك الصالحين. آمين آمين. Inshallah, we will speak about the last method and the method that I prefer and which is preferred to learn the Arabic language. As we said before, it's a method that combines a methodical approach through grammar and morphology and a skill-based approach through development of natural skills. Now, the way that I suggest the method be applied is that obviously a person firstly needs to be able to read the Arabic language, at least at a fair level. So the person should be able to read the language, should be able to identify the letters in their form at the beginning of a word, at the end of a word, and also at a medial position. That's the first thing. The second thing, there needs to be some introductions that take place. From those introductions is an introduction of new vocabulary. Now I'll come to new vocabulary in a more detailed form after I've described the first few introductions. The first thing that a person needs to go over, or the teacher needs to introduce to the student, which is not particularly from grammar, it's more from punctuation and dictation and skills of writing, is the Arabic alphabet. Reintroduce the alphabet, show them the different letters in their form, beginning, end, and medial. Also then introduce writing, so show them how to write the letters, the correct method, and specifically defining the letters which are problematic. There are 6 which are problematic, and those who obviously do a course in Arabic will know which 6 are problematic, and then thereafter according to the student. How the writing and the vocabulary should come together is that a student, in my opinion, a strong student doing a full-time Arabic course with a good memory and is hardworking can learn between 15 to 25 words a day, no problem at all. A student who's a part-time student and maybe doesn't have the same amount of time, or is not at the age of learning, or full-time, or memory isn't as strong, or not that committed, can learn at minimum, I would say 10 words a day, can learn 10 words a day comfortably. But let's say a student who's doing it part-time, working at the same time, has certain restraints, I would say 3 to 10 words a day is ideal. A minimum of 3 words every day needs to be learned. How should those words be learned? This is where writing and vocabulary come together. The teacher should teach the students firstly how to write the words. So you have the Arabic alphabet, you teach them a bit of writing, show them the way the letters are written, the problematic letters, and then examples from the vocabulary that they will be learning. So you pronounce the words for them, they should pronounce after you. Also with pronunciation, students should be alerted to letters which are similar in sound. So ha and ha, the zai and the dal, dad and a dha, ta and ta. Also letters which are sometimes mistaken for sounds in the English language. So we pronounce them the way we pronounce in English, however the sound differs depending on the sifa of the letter, and so on and so forth. So teach them pronunciation and writing through the vocabulary. Writing through writing the words on the board, 3 a day, or 4 a day, or 5 a day, or however many the student can handle, and that's the way I do it. And thereafter they should write those words after that and pronounce them. Also very important that the students say the words out aloud when learning. Even when learning the grammar and morphology, and later in the skill-based approach, everything should be pronounced aloud. Nothing should be read with the eyes. Also, why vocabulary? Vocabulary should start before grammar by at least a week or 2 weeks. Meaning that a student should learn vocabulary in such an order that when they are going through the lessons in grammar and morphology, no word comes about that they haven't seen before in their vocabulary list, hence allowing them to concentrate solely on the grammatical concept being conveyed by the teacher, and not worrying about what does this word mean and what's this and writing it down. That should not be the objective. The objective should be to teach the grammar alone. So a student can pick up one concept at a time. So the first lesson would be the lesson on the alphabet, and thereafter each lesson should contain not only your grammar, but you teach them a bit of vocabulary every day, listen to how everybody pronounces it, show them how to write it, and then reinforce that, the writing. So these daily lessons with the grammar will enhance pronunciation and writing. The grammar, the order in which it should go. If the grammatical, if the lessons on grammar are not in the order that's correct, the method will not work. Why? Students usually, in most grammar books, they start with a nominal sentence. The problem with that is that you look at a nominal sentence in the Arabic language, and then you see that there's masculine and feminine, definite and indefinite. You see declensions, marfu'. What happens? You start associating these sideline concepts with the nominal sentence, whereas they are independent and can come about in any word, not just in a mubtada and a khabar, in a subject and a predicate. So that's why I say there needs to be certain introductions which are taught before the nominal sentence. In my opinion, there are 10. Also, another common mistake that's, or not really a mistake, I would say it just would be extra and confuses students and adds more terminology to memorize, is that the grammatical concepts in the Arabic language are taken and translated into English. I don't agree with it, because a student then has to remember a word in English which means nothing to him. So what I would do is, when I introduce a grammatical concept and I come with the appropriate terminology that the Arabic grammar dictates, I explain the terminology and what implications it has in the Arabic language without having to go into the meanings of those words in English. So if I say mamnu' min as-sarf, I won't say it's a dabtut. What's a dabtut? If I speak about marfu', mansoob, majroor, I won't explain what does marfu' mean and what does mansoob mean and what does majroor mean in the English language. Immediately I'll go into the Arabic and explain, and then thereafter show an example. And that makes the process easier. The introductions that I speak about, the Arabic alphabet, which is not actually part of grammar, but it's important, parts of speech, and thereafter with parts of speech, after that you go into Hamza and Alif, the differences between them, because that's what allows a student to understand and identify correctly and read correctly. Most people don't even know that there's something called Hamzatul Wasl and Hamzatul Qati'. I'm talking about students who learn Arabic at some of the institutions which are around, because the method that they've been taught is incorrect. Thereafter we'll speak about the letters of mad, alif, waw and ya, for the reason being that students usually, while listening and writing and memorizing, miss these letters out, because they are letters of mad, elongation. So they elongate the sound of the letter that precedes them if it is preceded by appropriate haraka, meaning alif with a fatha, or waw with a dhamma, or ya with a kasra. So instead of writing rasulun with a waw, they'll write rasulun. Instead of writing baytun with a ya, they'll write bitun or baytun, batun. They miss out these letters because these letters are letters that show elongation, or mads, letters of mad or elongation. After that, definite and indefinite, and not in complete detail. Please, these lessons which I use as introductions are only there to introduce the concept, so that a student can build upon it later on when the time arises. These introductions allow them to understand that these are separate sections, not necessarily linked to any type of sentence or any type of phrase. Thereafter, after definite and indefinite, we can go on to sun and moon letters, also to do with punctuation and proper pronunciation and dictation, and then to declensions, and then to gender and feminine and gender more specifically, and then to dual and plural. Once that's complete, thereafter I would suggest that a person starts with a nominal sentence, certain phrases, mudaf, mudaf ilay, mawsuf sifa, meaning the adjectival phrase, the genitive phrase, the prepositional phrase, the adverbial phrase, then go on to the verbal sentence, prepositions, demonstrative pronouns obviously before that, then the verbal sentence, past verb, present verbs, the conjugation, and to show structure and pattern and how these things conjugate and how they morph, so that the student is not bombarded with also concepts of morphology tables and tables of things in different scales. They just need to learn a method and see a pattern. That's my approach. And then obviously at the end, numbers and what they call huruf al-nahi, or particles of negation. And thereafter to go into a skill-based approach. Now, how long would this whole method of memorizing the vocabulary, a minimum of 300 to 500 words with the grammar, before going to the skill-based approach? How long would this take? A full-time student, in my opinion, between a month and a month and a half. A part-time student, between 3 and 5 months, depending on how many hours of work a student puts in a week. So if he has 3 hours of lectures a week on 3 different days, I would say 3 to 4 months. 4 lectures, I would say maybe not more than 3 to 5 months. I mean, if it's 3 hours a week. If it's 4 hours a week, I would say maximum 4 months. And if it's 5 hours a week, 5 periods a week of 1 hour each, I would say a maximum of 3 months. Thereafter, a student then enters into a skill-based approach. But before going into the skill-based approach, the student needs to always keep present in his mind the vocabulary that they've learned and the grammar and morphology. This will allow them now, when they get into the skill-based approach, to see what they have learned in grammar and morphology being applied firsthand in stories, in conversations, in dialogue, in different things. And also, it helps them now because they have some understanding and background to grammar. It's not just reading and memorizing new words. They also have vocabulary. So the amount of words which are unknown are less, making it easier for them to grasp. And the things that they see, they can recognize. Am I looking at a ism, a fi'al, a harf? Am I looking at a nominal sentence, a verbal sentence? Why is there a certain way? Ask the teacher if you don't know. The teacher explains. Thereafter, a student can manipulate those dialogues and conversations and stories to suit the situation that he finds himself in when conversing, or to manipulate it to change from masculine to feminine, or from definite to indefinite, or to understand it in a different context. Also, it helps a student thereafter, through application of those the skill approach, to see how words are used in a different method, meaning the usages of words. It takes 3 months to get into the skill approach. And the skill approach is offered by any syllabus that's available. The Medina syllabus, when I say the Medina syllabus, I mean the complete syllabus, not what is sold at certain bookshops or online, just the Tadribat book, the Durus fi Lughati al-Arabiyya, not just the single book. I talk about Durus fi Lugha al-Arabiyya, the first book, which is called Tadribat, the Ta'bir book, and the Qira'ah book. Obviously Kitaba, I would leave it out because it's taught in the grammar section. And so on and so forth. As the semesters go on, the second book, the third book, the fourth book, and the supplementary subjects which come with those books. In the second book, you still have Tadribat, Ta'bir, Qira'ah, and you have fiqh and hadith now added on. And you have imla, dictation added on. The third book, the same thing. You have those same subjects, plus they add on, for example, seerah. These subjects of seerah and fiqh and hadith and tafsir, which are added on, are not necessarily meant to teach a student those sciences. They are meant as a foundation for those sciences and to supplement the language of a student, where you will use it later on to use those sciences. The same thing can be said for any other syllabus, which is a skill approach in teaching, meaning teaching the skills of reading, writing, expressing, and listening. Same thing can be said for the Nashi'in syllabus, for Al-Arabiyyah Bayna Yadayk. All these syllabi thereafter can be used after the introduction to grammar is made, and a student can use it to manipulate what he has learned, to apply what he has learned. When you go through the syllabi, you will see that certain grammatical concepts are introduced. At that point, you will find that your student already has a cognitive understanding of this. It all is cohesive. He understands where to build upon. The student understands where to put these ideas. If a new idea arises, you then take out a separate lesson to supplement the grammar that was previously learned and teach the new lesson. Thereafter, the student will see it in a skill-based approach in the appropriate books. Using this method, in my opinion, yields fruits at a faster rate. An example, I have students now who have studied for 1 year. The same approach. They finished the grammar and they have completed 1 semester's worth of the Medina books. essentially in 10 months of study, taking away holidays, 3 hours a week or slightly less. They've memorized close to 1,000 words, and they have started reading قصص النبي للأطفال by Abu Hassan al-Nadwi rahimahullah without my help. They're able to identify nouns, verbs and particles. They're able to morph certain verbs, or all of the verbs actually, because of the patterns that exist. Only thing that they haven't done is mabniul majhul. They understand that certain things are mu'rab and mabni because I introduced it later on. And they have the skills to look up words in an Arabic dictionary. So if they're looking for a word, they can look up the English word, the Arabic word in its singular form with its plural. They can look up an English word and find its Arabic counterpart, the Arabic word and its English counterpart. They can find verbs and they understand the structures, and thereafter they know how to morph those verbs and use it, and certain other concepts which are needed for self-study. Because the aim at the end of learning a language which you won't master in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, not Arabic, but you should develop the skills that allow you to search on your own without the aid of a teacher or helper, so that when you read Al-Quran, you are able to go back to the tafasir and read on your own and supplement your own knowledge through books and research, instead of having somebody spoon feed you the information. And I think this method here works very, very well to enhance the process and quicken it and actually better the method of learning and the order that information is taken in, so that a student becomes self-sufficient at a faster pace. And that's what we do at Al-Manar, and I know other students who do it, or have studied at institutes that do offer it in this method. However, not all of them have good enough teachers to supplement this method. That's the other thing. We need a teacher who is capable of supplementing this method, and it needs to be in a classroom environment, because one-on-one does not supplement the method. The method in the second semester of the skill-based method needs to change over to an complete Arabic medium. So you need a teacher thereafter that can converse in the language, who has the skills of grammar and morphology, who understands the background, and who's able to speak the native tongue if he needs to explain or she needs to explain something. That's problematic. So in my opinion, this is the best method, and the previous methods which were described earlier in the previous video, I think are incomplete. If you look at it, you'll see that the method of learning grammar and morphology and the method which is skill-based, their pros and their cons cancel out each other. So it only becomes pros. If you have these two methods that come together, you will find that the method is it's extremely sufficient and efficient in teaching the language. So if somebody wants to learn the language, I suggest that they use this method and find a suitable syllabus in grammar to supplement it. We do have a syllabus at Al-Manar. It will be made available online, inshallah, in the near future, and lessons will be made available also online, recorded to YouTube for students to watch at no charge. If any student does want to attend the classes, they can contact us on our email address, info@almanar.co.za. I'll put it in the description below, and we can accommodate inshallah for these lessons. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.